Japan has more people living past 100 than any country on Earth, yet they don't live in gyms or count calories. Aging well is driven far more by simple daily movement habits than by intense exercise programs, expensive supplements, or frequent gym visits. While modern fitness culture often emphasizes pushing harder, lifting heavier, or training longer, this approach frequently fails people as they move past midlife. After the age of 50, the body responds less favorably to high-intensity routines, and recovery becomes slower. What truly determines long-term health and independence is not how hard someone trains a few times a week, but how consistently they move every single day. In societies where people age well, movement is woven into daily life rather than isolated into workouts. Walking, squatting, standing, reaching, balancing, and transitioning from the floor are not considered exercise but normal human behavior. These natural movements continuously stimulate joints, muscles, connective tissue, and the nervous system in gentle but effective ways. Over time, this constant low-level activity preserves mobility, coordination, and strength without overwhelming the body or increasing injury risk. Intense exercise has its place, but it is not a substitute for daily movement. Someone can go to the gym 3 times a week and still spend most of their day sitting. Long hours in chairs, cars, and on couches slowly weaken stabilizing muscles, stiffen joints, and dull balance systems. No amount of supplements or high-intensity workouts can fully counteract the damage caused by prolonged inactivity. The body thrives on frequent movement, not occasional exertion. Simple daily movement also supports the brain. Balance, coordination, and controlled motion require constant communication between the nervous system and the muscles. Each step, shift in posture, or controlled transition challenges the brain to process information and adapt in real time. This ongoing stimulation helps maintain cognitive sharpness and reaction speed, which are just as important as physical strength when it comes to aging well. Another advantage of daily movement habits is sustainability. High-intensity programs often fail because they rely on motivation, willpower, and ideal circumstances. Miss a few sessions due to fatigue, injury, or life obligations, and the routine falls apart. Simple movements, on the other hand, require very little time or effort. They can be done at home, outdoors, or woven into existing routines, making them far easier to maintain over decades rather than weeks. Most importantly, daily movement preserves independence, the ability to stand up easily, walk steadily, maintain balance, and move without pain determines whether a person can live on their own as they age. These abilities are not built in the gym. They are maintained through regular use. When movement becomes part of everyday life, the body stays capable, adaptable, and resilient. Aging well is not about chasing youth or outperforming others. It is about protecting function, mobility, and autonomy for as long as possible. Simple, daily movement habits may not look impressive, but over time, they quietly do what intense exercise often cannot. They keep the body working the way it was designed to work. Slow, mindful movement has a profoundly different effect on the body than fast, forceful exercise, especially as we age. When movement is rushed, the nervous system stays in a heightened state of stress. Muscles compensate rather than cooperate, and joints absorb unnecessary impact. Over time, this pattern leads to stiffness, imbalance, and where that accelerates physical decline. Moving slowly changes that dynamic entirely by giving the body time to coordinate, stabilize, and adapt with each motion. When movement is deliberate, the brain becomes actively involved rather than passive. Balance, posture, and controlled transitions require constant feedback between muscles, joints, and the nervous system. Each slow step or controlled shift of weight sends rich sensory information to the brain, strengthening neural pathways responsible for coordination and spatial awareness. This process supports brain health in a way that repetitive, high-speed movement often does not, because speed tends to bypass precision in favor of momentum. Joint health also benefits from slower movement. Joints rely on regular motion to circulate synovial fluid, which acts as a natural lubricant and nutrient delivery system. Fast or jerky movement places stress on joint surfaces without fully nourishing them. Slow movement, by contrast, allows joints to move through their full range of motion under control, improving flexibility while reducing strain. This is especially important after midlife, when joint tissues become less resilient and more sensitive to overload. Mindful movement also recalibrates balance systems that quietly weaken with age. As people move more quickly, they rely on visual cues and momentum to stay upright. Slowing down forces the body to engage deeper stabilizing muscles in the feet, ankles, hips, and core. These muscles are essential for preventing falls, but are often neglected in conventional workouts. By engaging them regularly through slow movement, balance improves naturally and confidence in movement increases. The nervous system plays a central role in this process. Slow movement shifts the body out of a stress-driven state and into a calmer, more regulated mode. Breathing deepens, muscle tension decreases, and reflexes become smoother rather than abrupt. This regulation has ripple effects throughout the body, influencing blood pressure, digestion, sleep quality, and mental clarity. Rather than exhausting the system, slow movement restores it while still providing meaningful physical stimulation. Mental clarity improves because attention is anchored in the body, rather than distracted by speed or external goals. When movement is slow, awareness naturally sharpens. Small adjustments become noticeable. Posture improves without force, and unnecessary tension is released. Over time, this awareness carries into daily life, making everyday actions feel more stable and controlled rather than rushed or reactive. Unlike intense exercise, slow movement does not rely on adrenaline or motivation to be effective. It is accessible on low-energy days and adaptable to changing physical conditions. This makes it far more likely to be practiced consistently, which is ultimately what drives long-term improvement. Small doses of mindful movement, repeated daily, accumulate into meaningful gains in balance, joint health, and neurological function without overwhelming the body or increasing injury risk. Maintaining the ability to squat, balance on one leg, and rise from the floor is closely tied to long-term independence, mobility, and quality of life as we age. These movements may seem simple, but they represent a complex integration of strength, flexibility, coordination, and neurological control. When these abilities are lost, daily life becomes more restrictive, and reliance on external support increases. Preserving them allows people to move freely, confidently, and safely in their own environments. Squatting is a foundational human movement that keeps the hips, knees, and ankles functioning through their full range of motion. When practiced regularly, it supports joint health by distributing load evenly and maintaining tissue elasticity. Squatting also strengthens the muscles that protect the knees and hips, reducing strain during everyday activities like lifting objects or getting in and out of chairs. As chair-based living replaces floor-level movement, these muscles weaken and joints stiffen, making squatting feel difficult or even impossible over time. Balancing on one leg is equally important because it challenges the body's stabilizing systems in ways that no machine or seated exercise can replicate. Balance requires continuous communication between the feet, ankles, hips, core, inner ear, and brain. When this communication remains active, reflexes stay sharp and posture remains adaptable. As balance deteriorates, people begin to move cautiously, shorten their steps, and avoid uneven surfaces, which further accelerates physical decline and increases fall risk. The ability to get up from the floor without assistance may be the clearest indicator of functional aging. This movement demands lower body strength, hip mobility, core stability, coordination, and problem solving. Rising from the floor is not just a physical act but a neurological one, requiring planning, sequencing, and control. When this capacity is lost, independence is compromised because a simple fall or moment of rest on the floor can become a serious event. These movements also reinforce confidence. When people know they can squat, balance, and stand up easily, they move through the world with less fear and hesitation. Confidence encourages activity, exploration, and engagement, all of which reinforce physical capability. In contrast, fear of falling or getting stuck leads to avoidance, inactivity, and further decline. Maintaining these basic skills helps break that cycle and keeps movement natural rather than guarded. Importantly, these abilities do not require intense training to preserve. They respond best to regular low-intensity practice woven into daily life. Brief moments of squatting, standing on one leg, or transitioning to and from the floor keep the nervous system engaged and the body adaptable. Progress happens gradually, as tissues strengthen and coordination improves through repeated exposure. Long-term independence is rarely lost all at once. It erodes quietly when foundational movements are no longer practiced. By preserving the ability to squat comfortably, balance steadily, and rise from the floor with control, the body retains the essential tools needed for resilience and freedom of movement well into later years. Consistent, low-effort movements practiced daily play a far greater role in preserving mobility, coordination, and mental clarity than occasional bursts of intense activity. The body adapts most effectively to what it experiences regularly, not what it encounters sporadically. When movement is gentle and frequent, joints remain nourished, muscles stay responsive, and the nervous system continues to function efficiently without being overstressed. Daily movement maintains joint health by encouraging constant circulation of synovial fluid, which lubricates cartilage and supports tissue repair. Without regular motion, joints stiffen and lose their ability to move freely. Even if a person engages in intense exercise a few times a week, low-effort movements allow joints to move through their natural ranges under minimal load, reducing wear while preserving flexibility and comfort. Coordination is another function that depends heavily on repetition. Each small movement challenges the brain to send precise signals to the muscles and adjust based on feedback. When movements are performed slowly and regularly, this communication becomes more refined. Reaction times improve, posture becomes more stable, and movement patterns grow more efficient. In contrast, infrequent high-intensity activity often reinforces compensation patterns rather than refining control. Mental clarity is also closely tied to physical movement. Gentle activity increases blood flow to the brain and stimulates neural circuits involved in focus, balance, and memory. Because low-effort movements do not overwhelm the nervous system, they support cognitive function without triggering fatigue or mental stress. Over time, this steady stimulation helps preserve attention, spatial awareness, and processing speed, all of which tend to decline with inactivity. Consistency also reduces the risk of injury. When the body moves every day, tissues remain warm, elastic, and adaptable. Muscles and connective tissues that are used regularly respond better to sudden demands, such as catching a misstep or reacting to uneven ground. Sporadic, intense workouts, on the other hand, often strain tissues that are otherwise underused, increasing the likelihood of setbacks that interrupt progress. Low-effort movement is sustainable across changing energy levels and life circumstances. It does not rely on motivation, special equipment, or perfect conditions. Even on days with limited time or energy, small movements can be performed, maintaining continuity and preventing regression. This adaptability makes daily movement habits far more durable than rigid exercise routines. Over months and years, the accumulation of small, consistent movements produces meaningful results. Strength is preserved, not through maximal effort, but through regular engagement. Balance improves as stabilizing muscles are activated repeatedly. Mental sharpness remains intact because the brain is constantly involved in coordinating motion. The simplicity of these movements is what makes them powerful, allowing the body and mind to remain capable, responsive, and resilient without relying on extremes. Healthy aging is not about resisting time or attempting to reverse it, but about aligning daily behavior with how the body was designed to function. The idea of fighting age often leads people toward extreme measures, aggressive workouts, and unrealistic expectations that place stress on both the body and the mind. This mindset frames aging as a problem to solve rather than a process to navigate intelligently. When movement is approached with intention rather than force, the body responds with resilience instead of resistance. Moving with intention means paying attention to how movements are performed rather than how much effort is applied. It emphasizes control, awareness, and quality over speed, intensity, or volume. This approach respects the changing needs of the body as it ages, recognizing that joints, connective tissue, and the nervous system require different inputs than they did earlier in life. Intentional movement allows the body to remain capable without being pushed beyond its capacity to recover. Respecting the body's design also means acknowledging that humans evolved to move frequently in varied ways. Walking, squatting, reaching, twisting, balancing, and transitioning between levels are natural patterns that keep the musculoskeletal system integrated. When these patterns are maintained, the body distributes load efficiently, protecting vulnerable joints and reducing unnecessary strain. When they are neglected, compensations develop, leading to stiffness, pain, and loss of function that are often misattributed to aging itself. Intentional movement encourages cooperation between systems rather than competition. Muscles work together instead of overpowering one another. Breathing supports movement rather than being held or strained. The nervous system remains regulated rather than overstimulated. This coordination improves efficiency, allowing everyday tasks to feel easier and more fluid. As effort decreases, confidence increases, reinforcing a positive feedback loop that encourages continued movement. This mindset also reshapes expectations around progress. Instead of chasing rapid transformation, intentional movement values steadiness and adaptability. Improvements appear gradually in the form of better balance, smoother transitions, reduced discomfort, and increased confidence. These changes may seem subtle, but they have a profound impact on independence and quality of life over time. Moving with intention also reduces fear. When people trust their bodies, they are more willing to engage with their environment. They walk on uneven ground, sit on the floor, reach overhead, and change direction without hesitation. This willingness keeps movement natural and spontaneous rather than cautious and restricted. Fear, when left unaddressed, narrows movement options and accelerates decline by encouraging avoidance. Ultimately, aging well is less about doing more and more about doing better. Intentional movement honors the body's need for regular input, recovery, and balance. It shifts the focus from appearance and performance to function and longevity. By working with the body rather than against it, movement becomes a lifelong companion rather than a temporary intervention, supporting strength, clarity, and independence as the years continue to unfold through daily choices and quiet consistency built into ordinary life routines and moments of awareness that guide how the body responds to time and change.